Alrighty. So we are convened back to continue and maybe finish and maybe not finish. We don't know because this always involves a very, very thought-provoking conversation. A very important paper that we began a couple of weeks ago on the topic of Hongming, and the Chinese religion of what is it? Good citizenship, which is not exactly the most correct translation as far as Quan explained, but it's a start, which is not Ku Hongming's actual writings, but it is a good introduction by a scholar who is Chinese based in America, who's doing a good introductory overview of this largely forgotten but extremely important thinker. So last week we read the first 8 pages, had a lot of conversation. The link to that reading is in the description box. We're going to continue this from page 8 onward today. The link to the original text is also in the description box under this video if you're watching it on YouTube as a recording. Quan, I know that you have a few thoughts to share before we jump into it, so it's all yours.
Okay, so I would like simply to remember that Gu Hongming, who was born in 1857 and he died in 1928, was a 20th century, or let's say a 19th and a 20th century person having inherited the control and the epistemological legacy of the Han Imperial House. And I want to remind once again that the Imperial Academy of the Han Empire has been created in 124 BCE. And the first line of the inaugural address by the philosopher Chung-Yung, born in 179 BCE and died in 104 BCE, was the following: that man receive his mandate from heaven, and only man can match heaven and earth. And I want to remind that I use a metaphor of a house to synthesize the 9 books that are at the center of that aristocratic or timeless education. And that is at the square is made by 4 books: the Great Learning, the Centrality, the Analects Confucius, and the Mencius. And at the roof is made by the I Ching, the book of songs, the book of documents, the book on the rites, and the book on the spring and autumn, which is a historical book with philosophical elaboration, precisely. The most important one is the elaboration by Congyang, meaning by universal history, and that the central idea is that you need to create as many aristocratic men as possible to go to the everlasting civilization. In the next pages that we will read, we will refer, well, Professor Wang Huaiyu, speaking of Gu Hongming, will refer to his translation of one of the 4 books, the Chung-Yung, most of the time translated wrongly as the doctrine of the mean, that I prefer to say center on awareness. And I would like, because of the importance of that Chung-Yung, I would like to read the one section of that Chung-Yung precisely. And I start my quote: that which is ordained by heaven is called by our nature. To lead by our nature is called the Tao. To cultivate the Tao is called the teaching. One may not deviate from the Tao for so much as an instant. That from which one may deviate is not the Tao. Thus, the gentleman is alert and cautious about what he does not see, is fearful about what he does not see. Nothing is more visible than the obscure, nothing is plainer than the subtle. Hence, the Junzi is cautious in the space of his mind. Pleasure and anger, sorrow and joy, before they emerge, are called center. Emerging by the proper rhythms, they are called harmonious. Center. This is the great root of the word, harmonious. That is the ultimate Tao of the word, reaching center harmony. heaven and earth take their proper places, and the things of the world are nurtured thereby. So I'm aware that what I read might sound a little bit mysterious, but the thing that sounds mysterious is the following. Pleasure and anger, sorrow and joy, there's nothing mysterious in that. Those are the basic emotions. Before they emerge, they are called santa. Emerging by the proper rhythms, they are called harmonious. Santa, it is the great root of the word. So let's not forget the title of the book, Chung-Yung, centrality. Chung is centrality, and Yung can be understood as everyday life or used in everyday life. So the title of the book, word by word, would be used in everyday life by being Santa. And there is the precisely the Chung-Yung, okay? Centrality on what? I read the first paragraph again. That which is ordained by heaven is called our nature. To lead by our nature is called the Tao. To cultivate the Tao is called the teaching. Meaning when you are Santa on that which is ordained by heaven, which is our nature, and to lead by our nature is called the Tao. And the Tao is a Chinese word that most people in the West know because of the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching is precisely about ultimate awareness as the four books of Confucianism. Because I would like to say that there's a metaphor, which is my metaphor that can be used to explain what is Chinese culture, is a tree. If you see that tree with the roots of the tree, the trunk of the tree, and the branches and the leaves of the tree, the roots of the tree of the Chinese culture is the I Ching, the book of changes, with the hexagram at the center of the I Ching. If you remember last week or 2 weeks ago, I put at the center of the square the hexagram, meaning the 6 stages of the mind development, corresponding also at the 6 stages cosmologically. I will not speak about the cosmological dimension today, but I will just keep on about the epistemological dimension. I remind once again, because that is the center of our discussion, that hexagram represents the 6 stages of the epistemological journey. First stage is the sense perception. The second stage is intellect, wording, conceptualizing, and imaging. Third stage of social sophistication. There is a space between the third stage and the fourth stage, and that space is the classical education. In the West, I chose to use the metaphor of the 9 gardens, of the 10 gardens of the 9 muses, or maybe it would be better and nicer to say the gardens of the 9 muses. And in China, it's called the 6 liberal art. And that classical education, if truly understood, okay, because it is clear that there are people who receive a classical education and which remain perfect imbecile because they did not understand the education they received. So it is not because someone received a classical education that you take for granted that that person understood it. Okay, but let's take the case that the person understood the classical education that he or she received. It should bring that person to the 4th line of mind development, meaning the mind powers, making that person capable to uphold justice in specific situation. And here I go back to the title of the book, Chung-Yung. Chung means centrality or center in infinite awareness. Chung alone means center. But it is, if you read the book, Chung here means center on awareness, and Yung is a very ordinary word. It simply means to use in your ordinary life. Okay, Yung alone means to use, but with an undertone, something that you use in everyday life and not in special circumstances. So, Chung-Yung is to be centered in infinite awareness to go along your daily life in your usual activity. So I would like to remind again that the square of the epistemological part of the classical education, because the square, once again, is the epistemological development, and the roof, the triangle, is the control legacy of the Zhou dynasty, right? Zhou dynasty having ruled between 1054 BCE and 256 BCE. That square is the foundation of the house, of course, because the foundation is to make or to create, maybe it's nicer to say to create, as many gentlemen or aristocratic men as possible in order to achieve the everlasting civilization. The aristocratic man is the man at the fifth layer of the mind development, once again, or the Junzi for the Chinese, translated as gentleman, Jun meaning lord, and Zi, the son of a lord, is a gentleman. At the beginning, it had simply the meaning of someone born in the hereditary nobility, but with time, it indicates a man of which is a high-minded man, an epistemologically developed man, a woman, of course. So if the classical education is truly digested, you go to the fourth line, which is the mind powers enabling you to uphold justice in specific situation. And I interrupted maybe 3 minutes ago to explain in detail what is Chung-Yung, because awareness is not something that is in ivory tower of an intellectual discussion. Awareness is something that has to be live in reality in specific situation. Because if you read the books written by the fake democratic man, meaning the man at the third line of the mind development, having their intellect extremely well developed, extremely amazing, they are perfectly capable to understand the classical books, the classical education from the intellectual level. But if they are put in ordinary situation where they have to act, to speak the right words, to have the right attitude with their, let's say, people with whom they interact, they would not be capable to do so, either because they have bad intentions, since they are not epistemologically developed enough, or some of those people at the third line of the mind development called the psyche or social sophistication would have, let's say, weak good intention, but which are not unwavering. But what is certain is that they don't have the mind development, which is powerful enough, enabling them to say the right things, to have the right attitude, to take the right decision, to do the right actions, and to interact in a interesting manner with the people they interact with in order to solve the situation and to bring it to a fair solution. Okay, so here it's not only about the intentions or the desire, it is about the mind development that would grant you the specific powers to uphold justice. And when the dialectical development or epistemological development is deep enough to make you go to the fifth line, it is the line of the state man or the line of the aristocratic man, characterized by the timeless form of valor. And once again, I already said it last time, but it's important, so I'm not shy to repeat it once again. Valor is not only physical prowess, it is also, and first and foremost, the capacity to be creative, to be inventive, to explore inner reality and outer reality. That is true valor. And it is not a surprise that valor, which is the expression in time of the timeless form of goodness, is also having its counterpart in moderation. Okay, because if you are too valorous, too much is the same than not enough. So it is perfectly logical and epistemological coherent that valor and moderation would be the two complementary expression in time of the same timeless form of goodness. And at the last stage of epistemological development, you have, of course, this line of the philosopher king, or the line of the timeless form of truth corresponding to the mind powers of wisdom, making you see the situation in a direct manner. So I read once again the last first three lines of the beginning of the Chung-Yung, and the theme is the source of the Santa. Okay, the source of the Santa, meaning what is the Santa of yourself? That energy that is coming from the Santa of yourself. And I read it again. That which is ordained by heaven is called our nature. To lead by our nature is called the Tao. And to cultivate the Tao is called the teaching. And I want to go back to one of the funny acronym that I invented for the epistemological development is BOB. Okay, if you remember, BOB, B is for being, O is for overture, for epistemological overture, and B, the second B is for becoming. Well, here I want to say to you that Tao Te Ching is exactly equivalent to Bob. Tao is being. Te, meaning virtues, is the epistemological overture. And Ching, meaning classic, is exactly the becoming in time. And what is mostly interesting in those three Chinese characters, in Tao, if you separate the two components of the Chinese character, on the left side, you have the graph for movement or time. On the right side, you have the graph for the head or the fountainhead, meaning timelessness. That is for Tao. And for Te, the same. If you separate the graph for Te, on the left side, you have the graph for moving or time. And on the right side, you have the heart that is directed to what is right, timelessness. But at the level of man. And finally, Jing, if you separate the graph that is Jing, on the left side, you have the element for time, meaning also movement. And on the right side, you have the element for timelessness with three chevrons in the character. And those who want to see the details, you can read my article on the Of Mind and Man on universal history and the creation of aristocratic man. You can see the character with the three chevrons, and the three chevrons represent exactly beauty, goodness, and truth. And I want to show again another time. I think I showed it last time. I'm not sure. Yes.
To the right, to your left. Yep.
Yes.
A little further.
And so you see once again the Chinese character for Wang. You have three horizontal lines connected with one vertical line, and well, that's Bob. Okay, the top horizontal line is B for being. The second horizontal line is O for overture, epistemological overture, and the last horizontal line is the second B for becoming. And the vertical line uniting the three vertical horizontal lines is infinite awareness, or what I said since the last 20 minutes, Chung-Yung, okay, center on infinite awareness and acting in your daily life, being center in infinite awareness. And I finish by saying that the Chung-Yung is in 9 sections. The first section is called the theme, the source of the Santa, okay? And I read to you the first 3 paragraphs of the source of the Santa, because that is truly about episteme, okay? Infinite awareness. It's not for nothing that we call it the epistemological journey, because that is the journey making you center on infinite awareness. And after the theme, you have 7 sections. And the first section is called being near to the central source. The second section is the common basis of the Tao. The third section, Confucius on the sages and filial perfection. The fourth section on government, of course, okay, because one does again, Plato wrote his dialogues not because he wanted to have intellectual conversation with his aristocratic friends, but because there was a political real situation that was not satisfactory, that he wanted to change. Okay, so for the Chinese, it was the same. Section 4 of the Chung-Yung is on government. Section 5 is on perfect genuineness. Okay, genuineness here we can say authenticity or your real self, if you want. Section 6 is ruling by the Tao of nature and Li. The Tao here once again refer to infinite awareness, and Li here is about the principles. And Section 7, the sage's power of virtue. Okay, once again, the lower trigram, sense perception, intellect, social sophistication, the classical education, beauty, goodness, true, or justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom. So it's about the upper trigrams, it's section 7, the sage's power of virtue. And finally, the coda, because it's a structure like a piece of music, a musical piece. The coda is the invisibility of ultimate greatness. Okay, and that ultimate greatness, of course, is about the infinite awareness, and that is invisible. Obviously, it is not a thing, but that invisibility will be translated in your behavior. And once again, I finish with the name of the book, Chung-Yung, Centrality and Ordinary Life, or if you want, centrality on infinite awareness for your daily life. And because the classical education is the transition from the fake democratic man, line 3, the sophist, the hypocrite, name him like you want, the magician, etc., to the true one. And that transition from the fake to the true is precisely that capacity to be centered on infinite awareness, that you would not be carried away by your negative emotions or by your positive emotions, because you can be manipulated either by your negative emotions or by your positive emotions. And the plutocratic man and the fake democratic man or the sophist, they understand that perfectly. I stop here for now.
And this the book you were saying from, you're saying that there are no good English translations existent, right?
Now there's a good English translation. I just say things by memory, but there's a good translation by Professor Robert Eno, which I read in the past, and I would say to you that he understood perfectly that stuff, because it is not easy for a foreigner to penetrate the true meaning of a philosopher book from another civilization. And I would say that Robert Eno achieved that feat.
Right. Thank you for that composition and sharing, Quan. That I think has tuned our minds very nicely to begin to resonate with the essay at hand. So let me just do a little screen share. Okay, so it's 8:42. We have to unfortunately stop at 10, so I'm not thinking that we're going to necessarily finish, and that's okay. Um, the place where we left off is aesthetic appeal of the gentleman and universal order of civilization, a grand theme. So, we'll need a reader for today, like usual. Caprice, would you be comfortable doing that, or would you like someone else? Or Kelly or anyone? Kelly, would you like to read?
Yeah, I can read. Um, just trying to adjust it here on my screen.
Okay. Are you reading on your phone right now, or
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
that's a pain in the
unfortunately.
arse. If you want,
Like, just hang on here a sec. Okay, well, we'll see how it goes.
because I can
Yeah, that's good. The aesthetic appeal of the gentleman and universal order of civilization. Q's vision to bridge the division of East and West by quote, joining the best with best stems from his deep familiarity with both classical and Confucian teachings and modern romantic ideas. As Q sees it, there is very little difference between the East of Confucius and the West of Shakespeare and Goethe. Accordingly, those who well know both know that the best in China and in the West are in perfect harmony. Let the best of two civilizations unite, and nothing but good will follow. There's a side thing, number 7.
Okay, let's just do this.
I don't know. Okay.
That's just a citation from one of his writings. That's a great quote, though. I'm gonna copy that and use that a lot. Back up here. Yep.
Number 7. Okay. Gotland Muller affirms of Ku's Confucianism is the royal road to true civilization of the whole human race, which had been threatened to break into smithereens between the scylla of false liberalism and the charibides of materialism. That's from Mueller, page 13. Hence, when dialogue is often asked for as an antidote against a clash of civilizations, Q's thesis on the correspondence between best thinkers in the East and West may well provide more solid foundation for a fruitful intercultural dialogue than today's fairly common academic value in different forms of postmodern, radically relativistic, anti-essentialism criticism. Lots of isms there.
Mhm.
In my view, Hu was far ahead of his time, and he realized long before, as many cultural relativists do today, that the global order centered upon the signifier civilization of modern Western powers and their self-promoting values and interests is doomed to miscarry. However, in contrast with such relativists who went to the other extreme and rejected all universal standards and principles, in order to reinstall the unique self-serving values of each culture, Hu maintained that a universal order was not only possible, but also necessary, though we have no guarantee when the humankind could accomplish it. Okay, so remarkably, the universal order that Gu envisions is not a hybrid system of both worlds as suggested by some scholars. As a fact, in an article for the New York Times in 1921, Gu made it very clear that the attempts to amalgamate East and Western civilizations, such as proposed by the then Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Hara, reflected an ignorance of what civilization is. For a civilization is either a true civilization or a false, or as the Japanese say, a magai, make-believe civilization.
Hmm.
There is no East or West. There is no East or West. But how should we understand this universal order were it to involve neither such universal principles as promulgated by modern Western powers, nor the hybrid of Eastern and Western values? Here, it is worthwhile to recollect Q's main ideas on civilization as presented in this article.
I would like to interrupt here if it's possible.
Sure.
Uh, there is no east or west. I think here we have to go beyond the catchphrase. Okay, I think that there is a east and west at the level of the animal kingdom. Okay, so there is a, if you will remember that what is the animal kingdom is sense perception, is the intellect, the wording, conceptualizing, and imaging, and the social sophistication. So at the level of the animal kingdom, you have differences of culture, you have differences of perception, of reality, of representation of the world. But there is no east or west at the level of the upper trigram, okay? At the level of the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, or if you want in time expressed as justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom. It is only there that there is no west and no east. And it is precisely there that there can be a mutual understanding, but it doesn't mean that there are no different culture, because I think that there's nothing wrong that there is an east and a west in the term of expressing different culture at the level of the animal kingdom. And the only thing that is truly universal are the timeless form as expressed in time by the four cardinal virtues: justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom. So there's no east and west is part of those catchphrases that I like very much to poke a little bit.
Yeah.
Could you say it's like in the same way of saying there's no good and bad or light and dark,
Now
or
that is at the level, and your question is extremely interesting because it can be answered at the level of the animal kingdom or at the level of the absolute. At the level of timelessness, I say no, because is there evil or good? Here we are talking about timelessness, about absolute. So it's not the same that there is no east or west in terms of cultural expression. But if you ask the question, is there evil or good in a more ordinary manner, I will give you some laughable example. There are some meals in China that would be considered as absolutely revolting in the West, and there are some meals in the West that would be considered as absolutely revolting in China. Okay, so at the level of those cultural preferences, yes, there are difference of evil and good, but I understand, of most people would understand at once your question at the level of absolute of timelessness. And at the level of absolute of timelessness, no, there's no difference, of course.
okay.
That's the fun irony of universals done right is that it coexists with a respect for difference, and obviously the Crusaders, the Hobbesians are incapable of living or resolving that seeming paradox, whereas what you're saying here and what Ku seems to be zeroing in on is that, yeah, they're even though we wouldn't say that Confucius and Plato are the same. There's obviously there's different styles, different language, so many different aspects, but there is a common principle being expressed in both, and it's that common principle which is more than the sum material total of the words of the expression, which you want to zero in on. And it reminded me of William Gilpin in that famous quote I always cite where he's describing the Americans, and he knows he's pissing off and confusing Americans, but that's why he's saying it when he's calling for the world land bridge, and the bridging of building up railways through the West to open up the continent for rail development. And he's saying that the United States is the youngest, but also the most ancient civilization on the world. And he's describing how there's been this tendency in his philosophy of civilization to move west from China through Europe and then onward to the New World in the Americas. And it's sort of the destiny in his mind to take the best of that heritage. And he describes it like only the Chinese Constitution can save our corrupted civilization. And he's writing this in the 1850s. So it's he's being very polemical, but I think he's tapping into that same sort of way of thinking. He doesn't think that America is China, you know, but at the same time, he does understand that there is something as a common principle, which is would make both very clear members of the same family.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, I want to jump on it because it's a very interesting subject, okay? And it goes back to the theme opening the Chung-Yung, okay? The source, what is the source? That source of infinite awareness, precisely, is that there is no difference between West and East. But at the level of the animal kingdom, the US is not a product of China. The US are made of white people, of Christian people, of Anglo-Saxons, of having a certain cultural background coming from Europe, and China is China, having her history started 5,000 years ago. If we take the control matrix as the criterion, or 3,300 years ago, if we take the writing system as the criterion. Okay, so I think that we should never, never, never forget that at the level of the animal kingdom, there is a difference. And for the people who are capable to go to the divine kingdom precisely, that kind of difference is not a problem for them. It is on the contrary, the people who are not capable to go to the divine kingdom, that they would try to uniformize all the people on the world with their own template, if you want, okay? And I would like to finish with a very obvious example. It is the question of religion. It is very difficult for the Anglo-Sino-American oligarchy to deal with China because China doesn't have the concept of God. For China, the ultimate awareness, or if you want, the divine reality, is not named God. For China, it is the way to the epistemological development to justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom. And that is, and for stupid people or not advanced people, the fact that another civilization not using the same word for the same absolute reality would be something that would bother them extremely. Not even speaking of subgroup of Christians that would fight among themselves, even if they are supposedly having the same God. And the question of religion is so perfect for illustrating that at the absolute level, at the level of the Chung-Yung, of the source, there's no difference, but the cultural expression is absolutely different. And for the people who are dumb and not developed, it would be a big problem for them. And even especially if they have the machine guns and the bombs.
Shall we proceed onward?
Sure.
Cool.
As Q clarified, the object of this article was not to abuse the American people, as its title, The Uncivilized United States, might have suggested. It was rather to show the true meaning of civilization. Because in order to save civilization, the first thing you must do is to know what civilization is. For Q, the essence of a civilization is not its economic and technological advancement as measured by the standard living. It consists not even the arts, sciences, and institutions, but in its enduring spiritual achievement, in its enduring spiritual achievement. Here, Q cited Analects 17.11, where Confucius took issues with the then prevalent tendency to take Li and Yu, ritual ceremony for which is ritual ceremony forms of courtesy and music, the essential expressions of Chinese religion and civilization, to be merely a matter of carrying fine jades, wearing silk dresses, and playing musical instruments like bells and drums. What is he saying here?
Do you mean you don't understand what you just read?
No.
Okay, so here, okay, I will read again. Okay, here, Ku cited Analects 17.11, where Confucius took issues with the then prevalent tendency to take Li and Yue. Li mean ritual, and Yue mean music and ceremony. Form of courtesy and music, the essential expression of Chinese religion and civilization, to be merely a matter of carrying fine jades, wearing silk dresses, and playing musical instruments.
That's what us Western people view it as?
No. That is perfect as another illustration within Chinese civilization, what I just said before. Meaning that for the Chinese, for the classical aristocratic Chinese at the time, the refinement that is supposed to be inside their heart, their mind, their soul, is expressed at the visible level, okay, at the animal level, okay, because once again you have what is inside and what is outside. If you truly understand and you go through a classical education, what is outside is exactly what is inside, and what is inside is exactly what is outside. For the Chinese aristocrat of the time, wearing fine silk dresses and carrying fine jades are outside expression of a refined soul, of a sophisticated mind, and of a developed soul, okay? Supposedly. But what Confucius is saying here is that people are giving importance to those so-called exterior expression of a supposedly developed mind, but in reality, even if they have the exterior tokens or the exterior manifestation of a supposedly developed mind and developed soul, they don't have that reality inside their mind, their soul, and their heart. Okay, you can speak with the most refined words, but if your intention is to harm the others, your refined words and your beautiful clothes are nothing.
Yeah. Think 1 Corinthians 13 for a Christian ear to hear that, because that's pretty much the same message in 1 Corinthians 13, where you have the reference to somebody who's doing all of the right actions, but they lack substance in their heart and minds. So it's just outward forms. It's not, it doesn't carry weight. So it's just ritual in that sense for that person who wants to get into heaven or avoid hell or whatever, or be seen doing the right thing. But it's just ritual. It's not substance.
Yeah,
I think
ritual.
yeah. Did you have finished? Did you finish with your question, Kelly?
Oh, I was just thinking, I think last week or last time you said something about ritual.
Oh yeah, I
We
remember.
were talking about coming, like not imitating it, but it comes from the
Exactly.
heart.
That is the
Yeah,
difference, and that is that is the core subject of what Confucius was criticizing with Analect 17.1. A true
right.
rituals is true. Okay, I underline true. True rituals is supposed to be the shining forth, the spontaneous shining forth of a true sophisticated mind, of a true caring heart, and of a true shining soul. But when that external manifestation is not correlated with that true heart, true soul, and sophisticated mind, it is an stupid imitation and not true rituals. Okay, because from a classical standpoint, the word ritual is used only when that external behavior is truly buttressed or truly supported by a reality inside. So I
Right.
was using the word rituals classically speaking last time, and here Analect 17.11 is precisely criticizing that imitation of ritual.
Yeah. I'll go on here.
I think that Ken has a question, also a
Yeah,
comment.
sorry.
For everyone's edification, I just want to briefly quote Lao Tzu, who was a contemporary of Confucius, and he says of this on this point, the gentry wear embroideries hiding sharpened arms. Okay, so that's the contrast that between their true motivation, their true way of being in the world, and their exterior appearance of refinement.
Yes, and I would like to say that there is no contradiction here, okay? Because if you remember the characteristic of the person at the layer 3 of epistemological development, the sophist, the magician, the hypocrite, the fake democratic man, he has the perfect behavior of a gentleman, even if he is not a gentleman inside him. And that is the highest people in the animal kingdom. I know that it's not the first time that I say it, and probably it will not be the last time that I will say it. In a society devoid of democratic man, of true democratic man, and in a society devoid of aristocratic man, the fake democratic man wouldn't be the leaders, because there is an expression in French, quand le chat est absent, les souris dansent. When the cat is absent, the mice are dancing. Okay, so the cat here is the aristocratic man or the true democratic man. If you don't have the cat, well, don't be surprised that the fat mice would take the lead. Okay, the fat mice would be the leaders. It is absolutely normal.
Yep.
Okay. Ku indicated the gross mistake to take wearing high collars, cutting the queue, building European houses, riding in motor cars, and erecting statues such as one sees in the streets of Tokyo as the whole civilization, or even civilization at all. In Q's view, the true meaning of civilization in classical Confucian teaching was precisely what John Ruskin had revealed as the making of the civil person. The spirit of civilization consisted in the ideal types of personalities who were able to realize the universal truth of humanity. Resorting to Matthew Arnold and Chinese poet Su Don Puo's interpretations, Ku stated that both Christianity and Confucianism was first and above all a temper, a disposition. Likewise, civilization is also first and above all a state of mind and heart, a spiritual life. The essence of civilization is not dress, house, furniture, machine, ship, or gun, but the gentleness of mind and heart. The chief one aim of civilization, therefore, is not to make and teach men to be strong, but to make and teach men to be gentle. Accordingly, the only right and effective way to govern an empire, as the Chinese shogun Tokugawa,
the Japanese shogun.
Japanese shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu reveals, consist in the Chinese word, I'm not sure.
Zu.
Yeah.
Well, for an Anglo-Saxon, C is equivalent to TS. Okay, so imagine C as TS. Zu.
I'll have to get back on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. To have a gentle and tender heart, the Latin alma as an alma mater, the extreme gentle tenderness of a mother.
I would like to interrupt. Sorry.
Sure.
Did you want to read what is there before I interrupt?
It just says Q 1921 emphasis added.
Don't worry about those.
TF.
You don't have to read those citations. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Why I want to interrupt you is for two things. The small thing. A shogun is the Japanese pronunciation of a Chinese character, with what is pronounced jiang in Mandarin, and simply mean a general. Okay, the ruler of Japan between 1600 and 1863 was 1868 was simply a general who had a military dictatorship because he pushed aside the emperor, and the emperor would come back in 1868 to restore the imperial Japanese house. That is the small historical detail. The other big thing that I want to say is I want to go back to gentleness of mind and heart. Okay, what is the core of the 3 or 4 paragraphs that you just read, Kelly? Is the fact that if you imitate the animal dimension of another culture, okay, what I call the animal dimension of another culture, meaning the line 1, 2, 3, for example, wearing high collars, cutting the queue, building European houses, riding in motor cars, and erecting statues such as one sees in the street of Tokyo, well, you are simply committing suicide for your own civilization, because it is not by imitating the animal dimension of someone else that you will reach to beauty, goodness, and truth that would make your people capable of inventivity, of discovery, and of creativity. And from there, because you went on the epistemological development to the divine kingdom precisely, that you would be capable to have a gentleness of mind and heart. And here, gentleness of mind and heart has to be understood more than simply being benevolent. Okay, gentleness of mind and heart has to be understood as the 3 timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, or once again, I repeat for the umpteenth time and not the last time, or expressed in time as justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom, meaning creativity, inventivity, and discovery coming from your own people, and not simply imitating the external appearance of another civilization. You can do it for fun. For example, you want to dress up, for example. But if you do it by thinking that you have the essence, you are deluding yourself, and you are committing suicide for your own civilization.
Yeah, well, good point. I'll just add one little thing as well, that I just find interesting is that I trust Ku. I think that looking at the way he's well, through the medium of this professor, who I'm sure is authentic. The method of expressing his ideas, his insights, is something I recognize. However, at the same time, I also know I don't trust people like Ruskin or Matthew Arnold, who are both members of Huxley's X Club. And having read some of their works, it's interesting that they will promote something which has to look good, right? Like, the only way these types of nefarious characters can be successful is by promoting concepts that participate in truth, which makes it so attractive. And the idea of being a content, looking for a culture that will make the peasants content and happy being peasants, is something which was a big thing on Ruskin's mind. It was a big thing on Matthew Arnold's mind, to give people personal little cultures, right? So that they won't bother themselves with fighting tyranny or thinking about what are the higher power structures that might otherwise want to keep you a slave. But so then, to see how Ku is able to then take their words and their thoughts and then co-opt it for the good, which is, I believe, what he's probably doing right now, is taking the essence of what they're saying, which participates in the good, and actually introducing it now into his own part of the world.
Yeah,
I
but
like that.
I understand what you mean, Matt. But at the same time, uh, I feel that maybe I'm a protector of the surface of the victimocratic man, but those people do what they can. Okay, they are at a certain level of development that I call the number 3 lines. Okay, I'm inspired by the Confucian epistemological map, which resemble a lot to the Platonic epistemological map. Though I'm not saying that I'm excusing them. Okay, I have the pretension of stating a reality. Those fake democratic man, those magicians, those hypocrites, those sophists, name them as you like, they are at a certain stage of their mind development. So they do what they can. I think that the true mistake or the true responsibility lie on the fact that there is no aristocratic man or democratic man to be the cat to supervise that.
Don't
Because
you think that they could do the good though? Or
well,
are they
they do.
incapable of
The
doing the good?
problem of the sophist is precisely, and I always come back to that because that is a big subject. They have enough awareness to have a certain understanding of the universal, of justice, but they don't have the valor, the wisdom, and the humanity to put it truly in action. They will move back if they are challenged in true life situation. I'm not saying that they should not make an effort to go further. Okay, so I say that of course they have the responsibility to make an effort to go further. So there is a piece that belongs to them. But I still think that the fish rot by its head or by the absence of head. Okay, in the sense that if I take that metaphor, the fish rot by its head in the sense that if in a society you don't have aristocratic and true democratic man, the head is by definition the rank just below the fake democratic man. Okay, so the fish rot by its head, or using the other metaphor, the fish is dead by the absence of head. Okay, if you want to be absolute and the head needs absolutely to be a true democratic man or an aristocratic man, which is, if I have to choose just one definition, which would be my definition? Well, in a society without head, don't be surprised that there are all kinds of things happening.
Well, look, my point is that I just like it when the bad guys are able to have their words co-opted to do the good. Like when I hear China or Xi Jinping saying, "Yeah, we like sustainability. That's why we need more like nuclear power and fusion."
Oh
It's like they're
yeah.
taking something and then they're like transfiguring it towards a positive effect. And
Oh,
I know,
oh
like
man.
just having, looked at the type of problem solving techniques that people like Ruskin and the Pre-Raphaelites
But
are advancing.
I
They're
hope
trying
that
to hurt
I hope that
people so
yeah.
that they don't develop, their full capacities and keep them just pacified in a lowly,
Yeah.
philosophy.
Well,
And to be able to take
precisely.
that and spin it and turn it towards the good, I find that entertaining and I enjoy it. That's my general message there.
Yeah. And my general message is that here we have a case of an aristocratic man playing with words, because sustainability can be given any definition, of course. And when Xi Jinping turned in the right sense the word sustainability, it's only show one thing, that languages is a tool and it can be used by an aristocratic man for the good, or it can be used by a fake democratic man for a less good thing, let's say. Okay. And once again, the poor guy is doing what he can. Okay. But I agree with you. It's part of his responsibility to make an effort to go further than line 3. But here, maybe I'm a little bit the center on society who are top down, which is the case of China since times immemorial. The guy at 3, he will not engage freely and spontaneously within a true classical pathway if they are not enough democratic man and true aristocratic man to supervise him. But that can be debated till the end of the world.
Shall we continue?
Yeah.
Kelly, you want to take a break? We could ask Ken if you. Ken, do you want to
Yeah,
read?
sure.
Sure.
All right.
I'd be happy to. Where are we at?
We're at 4 Ku.
Okay. Let me turn my phone sideways here.
Yep.
For Ku, the production of ideal type of humanity with gentleness of mind and heart is the foundation of all true social orders. It is this sensus communis of the hearts, as inspired by the sublime moral and poetical temperament that is truly universal. As Ku elaborated, the essence and power of all great systems of religious teachings, such as Christianity and Confucianism, quote, does not lie in any particular precept, such as even the Golden Rule, much less in the collection of theories, rules of conduct, and discipline, unquote. Rather, it, quote, lies in the perfect state of temper, spirit, and mind, end quote. As a matter of fact, when this gentle and tender heart is absent, even the Golden Rule may lose its universal appeal and have to be promulgated by the most number of machine guns. Wow, that's clever. On the other hand, when this gentleness of mind and heart obtains, even those with opposing values and opinions would. Sorry, it's blocked there for me. There we go.
Would tolerate, respect, and even learn from each other.
Yes, would tolerate, respect, and even learn from each other, or at least agree to disagree if disagreement is unavoidable. Thus, by shifting the priority from external tenets and its institutions to the internal law of gentlemen, Ku identified a new idea of the universal as the common sense of right and wrong. Predicated on our refined temperament and cultivated personalities, this idea of the universal is unbound by the dogmatic insistence on any transcendent principles or haphazard mixtures of Eastern and Western values. As I see it, Ku's ideas about truth of humanity and universal order of civilization comprise two interconnected philosophical theses. First, moral truth or rightness of moral conduct does not come from partial or mechanical conformity of one's body or intellect to some pre-established moral rules outside. That's as far as I can read there. You got to move it up. Thanks. Outside one's being. Rather, it consists in the enactment of one's whole nature and being when it is, quote, fully developed, properly balanced, and in a well-ordered, harmonious condition, unquote. As Ku rightly elaborated in Appendix B in his translation of the Chung-Yung, quote, in order to think aright and find out what is morally right and true, we must first of all put and keep the state of our whole nature and being in a proper and well-ordered condition. The more fully our whole nature and being is developed, and the more perfectly it is kept in proper, well-ordered, and well-balanced condition, the more exact, just, and true will be the product of our thought, i.e., the nearer the idea of our mind or the product of our thought approaches that which is the thing we think about, approaches that which the thing we think about really is, as it exists by the law of its nature, and in this way brings the action which we take nearer to that which is in unison with the universal order and system of things in the universe. In fact, what we think then is true and what we do is just.
Nicely
I
said.
would like to interrupt here.
Yeah, I just want
Matthew,
this
you are going
reminds
to say something?
Oh,
Thomas.
I just said nicely said. That's it. No, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to
Okay.
say it reminds me of Thomas Aquinas. Go ahead.
Okay, so in the last two paragraphs, what would be in terms of rapprochement with the hexagram and the epistemological journey, what would be the three key words? And it starts with, as I see it, Ku's idea about the truth of humanity and universal order of civilization, and ending with what we do is just. what would be the three key words in terms of if we want to make a rapprochement with the hexagram?
Can you restate the question in another way?
Yes, there are three key words that are used exactly like that in the hexagram, and it is perfectly, and it is the two paragraphs is Ku-O's way as re-expressed by Professor Wang, or speaking about the hexagram. And there are three words what I use as it is in the hexagram. What are those three words? And I give you a hint. It's in the first of the two paragraphs. Okay, the first is started with "as I see it," Ku's ideas, and the second would be "in order to think aright," blah blah blah. It's very easy, maybe because you're absent-minded and you did not understand my question. But there are three words which are used in the hexagram and which appear in that first paragraph. And because it is Ku's way, as re-expressed by Professor Wang, to talk about the hexagram or the epistemological journey. That's why I interrupted Ken.
Which first paragraph? You're talking about this paragraph here?
The two paragraphs that Ken just read, the one starting with the "as I see it," and the second paragraph, "in order to think aright and find out what is morally right and true." I say that those two paragraphs are the expression by Ku as re-expressed by Professor Wang of the hexagram or the epistemological journey. That's why I interrupted people, okay? Because after all, everything we read from those two guys, because I see it's from those two guys, Wang and Ku, is about the hexagram, is about the epistemological development. So there are the three words used.
I guess when I'm thinking about the like the hexagram as far as an expression of the epistemological journey beyond the senses and into the higher domain of intellect and true being, I mean, I don't know what the specific word is you're looking at. I just know that there are the phases from the timocratic man, the lower third, the higher third timocratic man, you know, or sorry, the higher timocratic man, which is the fourth level, and then onward beyond that. But I mean, I don't know specifically what words you're looking for.
Well, you just said the four, okay? I read the paragraph, okay? "As I see it, Ku's ideas about the truth of humanity and universal order of civilization comprise two interconnected philosophical theses. First, moral truth or rightness of moral conduct does not come from partial or mechanical conformity of one's body, the sense perception, first line, or intellect, second line of the hexagram, to some pre-established moral rules, third line, the hypocrite, the conventional truth, because let's not forget that the official name by Plato of the third line is not the hypocrite or the magician. The official name is pistis, okay? And pistis means conventional truth and or beliefs, okay? So we have line 1, 2, 3 in the same sentence. Conformity to one's body, 1, line 1, or intellect, line 2, to some pre-established moral rules outside one's being, moral rules, line 3. One's being is the collective word for lines 4, 5, and 6, okay? Being is the three timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, as expressed in time, as the four cardinal virtues of justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom.
Oh, that answer. Okay.
And it's exactly the same word that is used in the hexagram, as I said.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. I'm on your page. I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, Ken, go for it.
All right, here we go. Now, this state of proper order and balance of our whole nature and being is the vital state of zhang, if I'm pronouncing that right. Here, Gu takes the Chinese word zhang to mean our central inner self, and thus our true self. It corresponds nicely to what Arnold calls the central clue in our moral being, which unites us to the universal order. Ku considered the word hey, which is usually translated as harmony or moral order.
As moral order.
Which is usually translated as harmony as moral order.
Yes.
This translation makes good sense here in reference to the appropriate expression of our emotions in accord with ritual and social decorum. Thus, when our whole nature and being are attuned to the well-ordered and balanced condition, then our true moral being and moral order are realized. The universe then becomes a cosmos, and all things attain their full growth and development. Second,
Okay, a small
the key-
detail. Okay,
okay.
a small detail.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run
In
to the bathroom. I'll
general,
be right back.
Yeah. In general, I'm not too maniac for the pronunciation, but harmony is a her and not hey, because it's a her. I can think to an English word that would sound like her.
Sound like what?
Her.
Horror?
Yeah, think to an English word. I don't think I don't have immediate perception of what
Are you looking for?
English word.
You're looking
What
for
English word would
Uh-huh.
sound like her? Okay, listen to me. Her. Find an English word that sound a little bit like that, or a part of an English word.
Say it again.
Because
It sounds
her.
like something I'm tasting a really bad food and I go, huh.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Her.
yeah.
Yeah, because it did not spring to my mind an English word or a part of an English word that would sound like her.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's two tones with that, whereas there only appears to be one syllable in the writing.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
there's only one tone. Her, second tone. Her.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds
Uh,
like somebody asking you to repeat a question. Huh?
oh, that's excellent. That's really
Okay.
excellent. That would be the English interjection when you're not
Mhm.
sure to what the
Yes.
guy just said.
Yes.
Yes, that would be the perfect closest pronunciation.
Okay, were we waiting for Matt to return?
I'm back.
Okay. So, oh, hey, by the way, Matt, I'm sorry to interject here, but I have been meaning to compliment you on the work you have been doing with Badlands on Russia. Okay, it's been a while back, but for some reason we lost some time there, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciated that effort.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, it's excellently informative. Okay. Second, the key to all moral action is the moral sense that inspires a person to fulfill his moral obligation as a free agent, aside from ulterior motives for profit and fear of punishment. Who identifies? Now, is it GU that you were telling me that needs to be pronounced that way?
Well, yes, it's a G is like a K, like kangaroo. That's one is easy.
Well, yeah, but I've been. Is that the word that you were trying to get me to pronounce as? Huh?
No. Her
No.
is okay. Let's forget about her and let's go
Okay.
back to
Okay.
coo,
All
like
right.
K like a kangaroo.
Yeah. I've got that one down. I just didn't understand if that was the one you wanted to correct. Okay. Who identifies this moral sense, the sense of honor and truthfulness, as the heart of Chinese religion of good citizenship? It is essential to realize our true being. It is also the universal foundation of all true social orders. No society, no human organization or institution can truly function without this sense of honor and duty. As Gu iterates in the spirit of the Chinese people, quote, a society without the sense of honor in men and without morality in its politics cannot be held together or at any rate cannot last, end quote. This is
Okay, I
really,
stop here.
yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking of what's going on over in Gaza right now and comparing it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, like, we're talking about honor and truthfulness. Like in the Bible, you know, that's like part of the Ten Commandments, I guess. Thou shall not lie. But we, like, we're reading other people's words, but in I don't in an epistemological way, like, can we prove that? Like, is there a way that we could prove that honor and truthfulness and like a universal truth kind of way is the right way, like to prove it almost like mathematically? But
You mean like a
Yeah, well,
logical proof?
I
yeah,
think
Yeah,
like,
I
well,
think
so
I,
like I'm saying, if
Yeah, oh,
say we live in a world where it's the law of
yeah.
the jungle, how far will we get? Where if we have these little few simple rules, we can go so much further, and you know,
yes,
such as honor, you know,
well,
being truthful.
yes,
I think the author is arguing from historical sustainability. Okay, and he's saying, you know, on the basis of history past, if you don't do it, if you don't arrive at this sort of way of being as a society, you're not going to last. You won't make it. You know, something you fall apart from your own contradictions. I think that's what
It'll
he's
just
saying.
keep falling apart
Yeah,
quicker, right?
yeah. It'll
At least
disintegrate. Yeah,
anyways.
yeah.
yeah. Well, that's the test of time. Okay, let's not forget that once again, the classical Chinese education is the creation of aristocratic man in order to what? In order to what?
In order to limit and supervise the lower orders.
Right, but in order to create something that would be everlasting.
Correct. The creative to create things of lasting value.
Yes, everlasting civilization. Okay, because
Yes.
once again, I go back to the schematic representation of the four books and the nine classics. The four books is the epistemology to create the aristocratic man. But the goal of the aristocratic man, even if it's a very beautiful man, is to be the essential ingredient to create, to maintain the everlasting civilization, which is the core message or the core lesson of the Chung-Yung in its Confucian interpretation. And the three Chinese words for that is Tai Yi Tong, and Tai Yi Tong means the great union. The great union of what? The great union of the animal kingdom and of the divine kingdom. Okay, the great union of intellect, sense perception, intellect, and social sophistication as the three layers of the animal epistemological development, and the capacity, the mind capacity for justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom as the development of the minds in the divine dimension or divine reality, and the two would be together. And that's togetherness that the Chinese call Tai Yi Tong, the great union, is the foundation of the everlasting civilization as embodied by the aristocratic man.
Like, we can, like, we understand this, but what about people like lower forms? Like, I want to teach other people these things, and traditionally we've used like Christianity. They read the Bible, and you listen to what I say, and you follow these rules, and it'll be true. And China, I'm assuming they're doing the same thing.
Well,
I'm
here's my authoritarian answer.
like what I'm trying to get at is, how do we do it so they can do the exercise for themselves, so they can understand, like, to know, like the way we did we do geometry, we do these circles and squares and triangles, and then we actually know what we're doing. Like, is there an exercise where people can find to know that these truths are really true?
Well, first, maybe in a certain society, that classical education is not promoted. Okay, first, if that classical education is not promoted in a given society, you should not be too flabbergasted that there are very few aristocratic men. Okay, that's first. Second, even in a society that would promote that kind of classical education and having the right aristocratic man to give the supervision for that aristocratic education, it is not 100% guarantee that someone that receive a classical education would become an aristocratic man. Okay, so there is a certain rate of failure. So my authoritarian answer is that the responsibilities is in the hands of the democratic and of the aristocratic man, and the candidates civilization to the rank of everlasting civilization would be those civilization which would be capable to maintain a core of aristocratic man through all kind of circumstances over time. Okay, that is the test of time. Because when I say that the aristocratic man is the essential ingredient to create and to maintain and to rejuvenate the everlasting civilization, it is only a general principle. But that general principle has to be acted in reality. And so the essential stuff is that core group of aristocratic man needs to be maintained at all costs. I don't want to be a doomsayers, but some civilization were born, they grew, and they die one day because precisely at a certain point of their development, they fail to maintain that minimal group of aristocratic man, or they are crushed by other more powerful civilizations. So not all civilizations are destined to be everlasting.
Right. Could you say that the aristocratic man or the aristocratic group produces the substance necessary for the survival of culture, but the sophist is the one who provides the false food that, if eaten, turns out to be toxic to the culture and can destroy it. And that's why Plato was so obsessed with the idea of the sophist and trying to identify him and rout him out.
Absolutely, because the sophist has enough awareness and mind development to give an appearance of a leader. Okay, if you take a democrat, if you put a bunch of democratic men together, they would not do anything interesting. If you put a bunch of democratic men with some plutocratic man, they would manage to maybe to roam over what I would call a tribal development stage of civilization. Okay, if you put some fake democratic man at the head of a population, they are advanced enough to make something that might resemble a sophisticated civilization, but most of the time it would not last. And I would say that if you study history very seriously, you won't find many aborted civilization that I would make the hypothesis that at their head, there might be an aristocratic man or two at the very beginning, but for complex reason, they did not manage to reproduce that those aristocratic man in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th generation, and etc. And one day that civilization simply died by its own faithlessness, because you know that certain civilization die not because some superior civilization came and destroyed them, but because they die because they did not manage to maintain the agricultural apparatus, or they did not manage to maintain the infrastructural apparatus. So some civilization just collapse, not because of attack from external enemies, but simply because they are so rotten from the inside that they simply collapse. Or in many cases, it was a combination of internal rot and of attack by an external enemy.
So what kind of man is going to go back into Plato's cave and try and free the ones that still see the shadows?
The aristocratic man. Because once again, I know that I sound very authoritarian and very top-down, but I reconcile myself with myself, okay? I want to be coherent with myself. My main speech is that within a population, within a society, if you don't have aristocratic and man, and you don't have true democratic man, the people at the top, by definition, wouldn't be the people at line number 3. Okay.
So we got to make more aristocratic men
Well, that is my speech since many months or years. And what I said is that when you have a bunch of democratic men together, you don't have to worry about them because they are too dumb. They will not be a source of problem for most people. They will be a source of problem for them, but that's all. When you have a plutocratic man at the head of a population, he will manage somehow, but his group will collapse. The fake democratic man is the danger because he's clever enough to create something that will last for many generations. Okay, that won't collapse in the absence of aristocratic man, of course, but that will last and that will provoke suffering and problems for the others. I'm sorry to get political here, but what we have now at Gaza with the genocide would not be possible with a bunch of a bunch of democratic men because they're too dumb, or with a bunch of plutocratic men because they're not good enough, not bright enough, not clever enough. But when you have rulers that are at the number 3, they are not in the divine kingdom, but they are at the highest in the animal kingdom. They are bright enough, clever enough to have a certain inventivity, a certain creativity, or they wouldn't be capable to take the creativity from some aristocratic man from their own culture or from other cultures. And with those tools of power, they would cause a lot of suffering and of disorder and of chaos for others. That is the danger of the fake democratic man, because he's bright enough for being a leader, for giving a good organization, and for stealing the creativity of past or present aristocratic man and use those objects created by aristocratic man as tools of power to cause suffering and problems in the world. And the Gaza genocide, like right now, is the perfect illustration of that.
I agree. Yeah, it's like being bright enough to use a machine gun, but not bright enough to know who you shouldn't be using it on. That's basically what it comes down to. Yeah.
Well said.
Okay, well, I can continue.
Well, and we're rounding out to sort of the 10 o'clock mark,
okay.
and I've got to jump onto
Fair
an
enough.
interview at 10,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So I'm thinking either we could just chat a little bit longer as we peter off, or round it out, but no point starting to read again at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, there was something else you did this last weekend. I thought it was around last weekend that was also extremely good. And I can't remember what the subject was anymore, but I was very impressed by it also. Do you remember what you did?
I don't know. I do a lot of stuff. I'm not sure.
A lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Might have been the Tesla stuff. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
You did the Turkish Empire. That was very interesting.
Oh, well, yeah, that was Colonel Towner Watkins. She's a gem, eh? What a gem.
That's amazing. Just
yeah,
amazing.
I mean, what's great about her, I mean, she's somebody who is, a colonel, on the ground experience in Turkey and Desert Storm and all these crazy situations, and she's really made an incredible transformation of her identity with her discovery that there were a bunch of Nazis given new jobs to run NATO and the paramilitary state of the world, and she's really embraced it full hog and rolled with the punches nicely. And yeah, she's a powerful communicator. So it's great that she's out there, and the fact that she's really not afraid to call out the anti-China freaks as well. Like, she's come to the point now where she can literally say very clearly and with great knowledge that China is being falsely blamed, and the real threat, if you're going to look for a Chinese threat historically, is Chiang Kai-shek. And she just railed the Green Gang and Chiang Kai-shek and that whole like CIA apparatus very beautifully in that last presentation. So yeah, I'm very impressed.
Yeah. I would like to suggest a very small channel, okay? And the name of the channel is really glorious, and the name of the channel is Awakening. And it's a Chinese guy from China speaking an excellent English, even if he's kind enough to put subtitles. But
is it YouTube?
It's on YouTube. You can go on Awakening, and you write, for example, the last thing that he was mocking is about Peter Zeihan. And if you write Awakening at Peter Zeihan, you should bomb on his channels. I think it's a tiny channel of maybe around 450 followers, but the quality of what he is presenting is outstanding, and he has, for North American, an excellent English. And once again, he is kind enough to put subtitles in case people are not used to his accent. So you see that it's a very aware guy. Awakening is the perfect title for his channel. And on the stuff by Peter Zeihan, precisely, he's quite amusing. He said that Peter Zeihan, after all, is only peddling what the deep state would like the average American democratic people to think about China. Okay, and he's from a family owning an industrial park, having more than 2,000 employees in mainland China. So to say that the guy knows industry and he's an industrial consultant for, he said in the video on Peter Zeihan for the last 20 years. So he looks at 35 in my eyes, but as most Asian, he looked a bit younger. So if we suppose that he started his career of industrial consultant at 25, which is would be already quite young for that kind of job, he's 45. So I think he's probably in reality 55, even if in my eyes he looked 35. Anyway, that being said, he was mocking Zeihan, saying that, oh, the idea that the deep state or the CIA want the average Westerner or the average Americans to believe about China is that China is at the bottom of industrial development, and that the West is at the top of industrial development. But what makes him laugh is that there's a middle development of industrial capacity, and that middle level is owned by the Thailand people, by the Malaysian, by the Vietnamese. that he put the Vietnamese and the Malaysians and the Thai people before China is so laughable.
And then you ask him about, like,
No. Yes, but because Zeihan, when he created that middle level of industrial development, he wanted to make the American and the Westerners believe that, you know, there's no risk from China. They are at the bottom. We are the top, of course. They will never reach to the top. But, you know, they will never reach even to the middle, because the middle is monopolized by the Malaysians, by the Thai, by the Vietnamese, by the Filipinos.
No, that's stage magic right there. That's Aristotelian stage magic. What? Yeah, I mean, but it's incredible. Like when you just use basic sophistry and syllogistic logic, you could and you do it with like a little bit of charm in your voice. You could really just do like a Jedi mind trick and all of a sudden have people believe that black is white. I mean, it's very Jesuitical.
Well, people want to believe what they want to believe, to be frank with you.
Well,
okay?
yeah, I mean, he's
very
appealing to
human.
their lowest common denominator. He's appealing to the prejudiced outlook that they want to kind of have deep down inside, so that they don't actually have to change who they are, which is, I mean, a deep psychological problem that a lot of his
That's
audience
why,
suffers from.
yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say that when you have a bunch of democratic men together, they wouldn't only harm themselves, for they are not very dangerous for the outside people or for the home planet. But the types of people in their epistemological journey, because it's part of nature of reality, okay? To reach to level 4 and 5, you have to pass by level 1, 2, 3, okay? Some people would pass very fast in 1, 2, 3 and would go to 4, even when they are 5 years old, and 6 years old, 7 years old. And that is precisely the ambition of a true classical education, is to introduce that kind of stuff to children of 3, 4, 5 years old, so they can skip very fast the first stage, the second stage, and the third stage. Because after all, we all need to use our sense perception. We all need to know how to speak, how to use images, to use concept, and to use wordings in an appropriate manner. And we all need to have some social learning and to get a minimum of social veneer and of social sophistication. But it is possible to go through those stages and to be introduced at the same time to the timeless form of beauty, so that you would not be in the wrong path, and you have to do it at 20 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old. It's not impossible to do those stuff starting at 40 years old, okay? Don't take me wrong. But it is much better to start at 3 years old.
Quan, are you familiar with Piaget?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
But Piaget is not very impressive for me. Because I think that he's good for the animal kingdom, in the sense that the description of his development is good for the intellect, for the sense perception, absolutely, and even for social sophistication. But it's not a true whole classical education, because the divine reality has been decapitated.
Right, but basically he's arguing that there's a maturity in moral thinking that obtains, and you go through different stages of understanding morality until you arrive at something more universal.
Yeah, sure. In that sense, I would say that Piaget created a work of psychology that is absolutely okay in my mind. But the problem that most people in the West thought that Piaget was a genius, and that he offers something that would cover the whole human development. And there was the tragedy.
Well, they thought the same about Freud. Okay.
Oh, Freud is even worse. I use a metaphor. I say that for Freud and for Jung, the human mind is too much in the basement and not in the second, third, fourth, and fifth and sixth floor. I have nothing against the basement, but if you have a building having 6 floors, maybe it's a good idea to explore the 4th, the 5th, and 6th floor from time to time.
I love that. That's classy. It's a classy way of saying it, Quan. I appreciate that.
And I would say that it's part of the dumbing down to insist too much on the basement and the 1st and 2nd floor, which exists, and there's nothing wrong with those basement, 1st and 2nd floor. But the tragedy is that most people nowadays believe that the 5th, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th floor simply don't exist.
Well, you know what Freud would say to you, right, Quan?
What?
You know what Freud would say to you, right?
I say to him, "Fuck you." So
he would say to you,
"What would
hey,
Freud
Quan,
say? What would Freud say to
he
Quan?"
Would say, "Hey," he would say, "Hey, Quan, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar."
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Oh, I would say that it would be me that would have said that to Freud, that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about going up to the higher than materialistic levels. Okay, that's why I'm saying he would say to you, "No, it's just a cigar, man. Come on."
Yeah. Well, the tragedy of those people is that not that they were not so bad explaining and describing 1, 2, and 3. To be frank, because of my profession, I read those people, and to be frank, it was not so bad. Okay, the only thing is that they completely decapitated 4, 5, and 6. And once you completely decapitated 4, 5, and 6, you create an animal kingdom, and sometimes an animal kingdom can be very beautiful, of course. But you don't have any chance to be an everlasting civilization, because to be an everlasting civilization, you need a minimum of aristocratic man. And to have a minimum of aristocratic man, the criterion is to be aware first that the 4th and the 5th and the 6th floors is not a product of imagination, but truly exist.
A critical mass of aristocratic men.
Oh, I think that China became what she is in the last 100 years because contrary to what people believe in the West, that China just appeared out of emptiness and became what she is in 40 years, it's wrong, okay? China returned to what she was since with the work of aristocratic man since 1850. Okay, so it was a work of about 175 years. So if you accept that a generation is about 30 years, it was the work of 5 generations and a half, let's say 6 generations. And I would say that during those 6 generations from 1850 to today, 2024, the percentage of aristocratic man in China was probably maximum in the order of 5%. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot of aristocratic man.
They really pushed their school system with like teaching kids the arts, sciences. We don't do that in the West.
Kelly, it's now that you see that. Okay, between 1900 and 1945, China was in a complete disaster.
They weren't able to even form schools in a way back then.
Not for the
disorganized.
Not for the average Chinese people at the time. It was only the upper class and the upper middle class who was capable to afford education. And as I said, it's not because you receive a classical education that it's guaranteed that you will become an aristocratic man. So there is a natural failure rate even among the people having the money and the opportunities to offer an aristocratic education to their children. So when I said that, and even in that catastrophic period between 1900 and 1949, the Chinese landlord class managed to create enough aristocratic men to keep on. And that is why I always return to that. You have to produce, to create those aristocratic men, even if they only 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. Even now in 2024, I think that China has maybe somewhere between 5 and 10% of aristocratic men, okay? Maybe let's say an average of 7%. And China is at the top of her glory right now. Very clear, very near the top. I think the top is not still there. The top, it will be in 30 years, but she is at the very near the top. And it's only 5 to 7% of aristocratic man. And probably during the disaster between 1900 and 1950, I would take the risk that to say that maybe there was 1% of aristocratic man in China. But that 1% was absolutely vital to bring her from 1900 to 2024. Okay, let's not forget that the population of China.
Shoot, guys, I'm sorry. I just realized it's 10:01. I got to jump out of an interview.
I will keep on my speech
I love
next
the
time.
points. Thank God for the aristocratic process going on in China for decades and decades, and it's really important what you just said, to think non-linearly and really have sense that it's not a question of numbers. It's really about quality, and it's about thinking on the very subtle, longer waves of history. That's where the big fight is located, not in the kinetic moment-to-moment battles that can often demoralize us, but really getting the mind to shift gears, think long wave, deep history, and then we've got something we can work with. So, Quan, thank you for those parting words, and thank you, everyone. Well, let's continue this next week.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.